Well, good morning, everyone. We are in Genesis chapter 18, wrapping that up and looking at 19 today. We're about halfway through our questions on 18, verse 16 to 33. Not going to read that again. Maybe just a summary will suffice. We have Abraham looking at Sodom and Gomorrah, talking to the Lord, and he prays that it would not be destroyed if there were a number of righteous people there. They get down to 10, of course. And we talked a little bit about the plan of destruction being revealed to Abraham out of respect, out of love. Also said, the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah were bad enough that the Lord was going to do something about it. So I'm looking at 3 then as our questions go. Yeah, so how was Abraham's prayer answered by the Lord? Lois?
Lot's family was saved.
All right. So Lot's family was saved. So the prayer in itself was not that the cities were saved. Right? If there were 10 righteous, that would have happened. But the Lord knew that Abraham was praying for Lot, and he wanted the righteous man and his family to escape without harm. Question 4. Sin does matter. Why is God not going to look the other way when it comes to present-day Sodoms and Gomorrahs?
He cannot deny himself. He is a just God, a holy God. But he's a gracious God. But the first part applies.
But they are not repentant either.
All right, so the unrepentant people that make up these cities will certainly not be given a pass. Right? That's not in God's character. That's not in His perfect being to let sin be ignored. Sometimes in the Psalms, I was looking through a few, like Psalm 73. We won't look that up necessarily, but the psalmists like David sometimes argue God does let the wicked prosper. He does let them get away with stuff. And how do you interpret that when David or someone says, well, the wicked are getting away with it. They never age. They never go hungry.
Isn't that the example of the chaff and the wheat and the weeds in the field? It's all allowed, or it's allowed now so that when the end times come, everything's going to be sorted out.
Okay, so always that struggle between temporally, you can argue the Lord does let the wicked prosper. For a certain period of time, the weeds do grow really well, and you can lament that, right? Weeds grow too darn good. The wicked keeps prospering. But in the end, even in those Psalms and with Sodom and Gomorrah and in this world on Judgment Day, there comes a time where it's going to stop. The Lord's judgment will come. And I don't know, maybe a modern day comparison of this is sometimes a public figure is convicted, and then they say, well, the sentencing will be in March. It's going to be 3 months from now. And I don't know. I'm sure there's good reason for that, but not being a legal person, I question that at times, right? Like, do we really need 3 months to sentence this person? But God kind of does the same thing, right? I mean, the sentence is guilty. There's judgment coming, but we're waiting 3 months or 2,500 years, whatever he wants to do for his reasons. And of course, for the sake of the elect. And that's another discussion. Yeah. I thought also you could make a comment here. He does kind of look the other way, or give us time, because we're the salt of the earth, right? Matthew 5:13 to 16. Maybe that is that discussion of, the weeds and let the grain grow. So we're the reason why Sodom and Gomorrah today hasn't been destroyed, and not to put ourselves on a huge pedestal there, but your wicked neighbor isn't smitten or smited, maybe because of us, right? The Lord has been patient. If every city was I don't know, downtown Las Vegas, probably wouldn't be here right now. But it's not quite that wicked everywhere. So, questions, comments? Like your cars, they start slow in the morning. Thoughts are coming. If you're watching this in summer on the video, this will make no sense, but
He still doesn't want the wicked to perish. He's forbearing. He's
Yeah.
patient. A day is like 1,000 years with the Lord. It's not slow to come. It's coming. He is not willing that any perish. That's the key. A former teacher of mine, Dr. Becker, said it was like we live in a house called grace. So we sin too. And even though we sin, it's not the Lord is waiting to pounce on us. We are living in grace. They are not living in grace, and He's still gracious to them. But
yeah.
it's the whole God is forbearing, but in the end, He will not be mocked.
And certainly Sodom and Gomorrah was mocking the righteousness of the Lord and Lot. So, yeah. Well, why has the Lord revealed to you what the future holds for the world? Right? Kind of a thought of three angels haven't come to your house and told you exactly the vision of Revelation, but John has. Jesus has told us the end. Why has He told us?
Because He knows we're weak and need to be reassured.
Okay. So if we didn't know there was an end, maybe we would question, will anything good ever be resolved kind of thing, right? Like maybe the movie doesn't have an happy ending, right, of our lives. And we could question that. Definitely. Why else do you think God tells us what's going to happen, Margaret?
He's given us the job of sharing that news. So He gives us time to do it.
Okay, so there's an urgency to share the gospel. There's time to share the gospel. There's reason to share the gospel. The end, the judgment is coming. Yeah. I think we, as Christians, do well to say there's a first coming. Jesus came, saved us, but He's going to come back and be looking for us and what we're doing and if we're believing and trusting in Him or not. So, I mean, I just parallel Abraham in these thoughts a little bit, God, I think, wanted Abraham to pray. He wanted to have a conversation about it, and I think Judgment Day does prompt us to pray for a good outcome for as many as possible. To prepare and share. And we said earlier last week that God had a loving relationship with Abraham, right? He kind of brings him in as his partner here in the plan of salvation. And we too are brought into that plan of final salvation as kind of a partner, as much as we can think of it that way, right? So, the Bible tells us that angels listen to what God has told us to try and also kind of figure out what God is doing in the end. So, kind of interesting that even the angels are eavesdropping on God's revelation to us. But we're, His children, and He treats us as such, isn't He? God. Six. Abraham prayed 6 times. What does this say about the nature of prayer? Joel?
We have to keep on praying for, like, some of us got children and grandchildren that don't believe, and we gotta keep praying for them. Can't give up on them.
Yeah. Keep on praying, the persistence of prayer, right? Abraham is a great model of that. He doesn't give up or settle. Wayne?
Same idea. It was eye-opening to me. I can't think what the passage is. Like I say, at this point, I'm thick-headed, whatever. But it actually meant, don't pray once. The translation really means keep on praying, but I can't tell you what that fits, if it's the Lord prayer or what.
Well, Paul says pray continually in one of his letters. If not once, more than once. Yeah, and I think at some point maybe your prayers feel too simplistic or something. Well, this is too simple of a prayer. God knows it, or I'm repeating myself. That's, I prayed for that yesterday. Well, we shouldn't feel awkward about a very simple, repetitive prayer. That too is God pleasing.
About 8 years ago, I started a prayer journal. It was recommended by a friend out east, and it kind of serves as a diary, because it's a month by month. And when you go back, all of a sudden I come to realize 8 years, there's certain things that have not been answered, and I'm still praying for them. But I'm going to continue on, for that. So, but I would say if you ever do something like that, it really does serve to go back and see where God has answered, or where you're still in a waiting period for something to take place.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's 2 great examples in this chapter of, don't think that prayer is not effective, or everything in life is set in stone, right? So the Lord says, I want to go down and examine, consider, ponder this destruction if I'm going to do it, and then even kind of reconsiders here with Abraham, and yeah. I wonder if Lot ever thanked him for his prayer. I'd like to think Lot took him out to dinner or something afterwards. But let's go save Lot. Chapter 19. It's a hunk of a section today, but we will give it its fair shake. So, gosh, I feel like calling upon a reader or two. As far as you want to read, maybe up to 29. That'd probably be the most I'd make anybody do. Margaret, go for it. Thank you.
The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we'll spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." "Get out of our way," they replied. And they said, "This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us out to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to him, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of. But flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That is why the town was called Zoar. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived.
I'll give you a break. Anybody want to take it to the end? Wait, okay.
Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the mountains, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. His 2 daughters were with him. He lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. The firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is not a man in the land to come to us, as normally takes place everywhere on earth. Come on, let's get our father to drink wine, and we will lie down with him, that we may preserve our father's seed." They got their father to drink wine that night, and the firstborn went and lay down with her father. He did not know it when she lay down or when she got up. Then the next day, the firstborn said to the younger, "Look, last night I lay down with my father. Let us get him to drink wine again tonight. You go and lie down with him, so that we may preserve our father's seed." They got their father to drink wine that night also. Then the younger went and lay with him. He did not know it when she lay down or when she got up. In this way, both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The firstborn gave birth to a son, named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also gave birth to a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day.
All right. So Lot receives the angels as guests. There's a lot of commotion. And leave. And Lot lives in a cave and gets drunk, and the rest is history. So, in the look section, we had the comment, I have 2 daughters. Lot tells the locals. Lot surely is not acting in a loving way towards his daughters, regardless of how the culture of his day felt about daughters or showing loyalty to guests. So there's quite a bit of commentary about just how this all starts. Lot is at the city gate, and does that mean he very well could be higher up in the city functioning? Is he a councilman or something like that? That would seem to make sense to most commentators. They say the city gates where people would have like judgments and kind of the makeshift courthouse type of thing. Other thoughts would be, Lot is just the kind of guy that wants to be hospitable to people that are traveling in here. He knows what the city is like. Angels or not angels. Maybe this is something he would have in his character to do. But yeah, putting his daughter's needs and safety below that of these angels or guests, I think it's quite shocking all the way around. Not that we want him to give up anybody, but certainly Lot, before the miracle of the blindness of his neighbors, feels something's going to give. He can't stop this train of wickedness. So, comments, thoughts? I know that's a big point. Yeah.
Could this be interpreted as a sacrifice for the angels to protect them?
Well, definitely in the thought of humility, or again, we wrestle with, does he know they're angels as soon as we do, right? We know the whole time that these angels just came from Abraham. Does Lot know this or expect this? There's details that we're not told, but it does seem like they go immediately from Abraham down to Lot, and it's not like Lot's preparing for them or just would be expecting them. Again, yeah, I mean, how do you defend? It's hard to defend, and that's a good attempt, I suppose. But even then, you can't. I mean, this is almost like a defending Dahmer saying, I don't like prostitution and homosexuality, so I'm going to kill homosexuals and prostitutes or something. Boy.
No, it's a stretch.
Right? It's a stretch, but you can see, but Lot isn't insane either, right? I mean, but I think the author and editor maybe says culturally, yeah, I mean, culturally your female daughters are not going to be maybe as honored as male guests. I mean, that's kind of where I'm hearing and thinking a bit. Wayne?
I'm thinking that Lot is calculating and naive at the same time. Calculating, these are homosexuals, they're not interested in the girls. So therefore, they'll say no and then think twice and leave. Calculating. On the other hand, naive, that they would be satisfied with that. No, we'll attack you and everything, so. And this is where try to manipulate the story, but it doesn't work.
Okay, so maybe I'll call your bluff a little bit here. Like I'm not going to start a fight with you and say no outright, but I will offer you something you will not accept.
Yeah.
Right. Even you guys are. So maybe so spinning it that way. He doesn't think his neighbors are nearly as monstrous as to take his daughters and to do something with them wicked when maybe they're homosexuals, maybe they respect Lot enough. So Lot, I guess Lot's really putting his reputation on the line here, right? For my sake, my house, my daughters, you're not going to touch these guys. So, yeah. Another thought, Lois? And
Yeah, verse 14 always confused me. He calls them sons-in-law, and they were pledged to marry, but it sounds like they never were with his daughters or anything.
Yes, yeah. So they're engaged in our terminology at this point.
But
So
they never saw each other.
right. So there's a time where they're living under the same roof, maybe, or very close to that, but they haven't been publicly wed. Yeah. And where are these guys anyway? Right. Yeah. So that does make you think maybe this is a kind of a disingenuous offer that he knows they'll say no to. The sons-in-law are interesting. We'll talk more about them in a minute. Yeah, Joan?
Well, like sometimes we're appalled with how wicked our world is becoming. But just think, this is only a few generations from Noah's Ark already, when the world was destroyed because of its wickedness, and how wicked men have become. And instead of having a loving relationship with women, they treat them like they're nothing more than a baby machine. And the women who couldn't have babies were disrespected, and now here he wanted to let the bad guys have their way with his two daughters, and total disrespect for women. Although
Yeah,
although Abraham and Sarah had a loving relationship, Isaac and Rebekah had a loving relationship, Jacob and Rachel had a loving relationship.
Yeah, I mean, and I think just the wickedness in general. I mean, okay, these angels, as they are in the appearance of men, are gorgeous, right? They're not gonna look like guys that just got off working the pipeline or the oil rig, right? And then you throw them in the middle of some sort of gay bar type of city at night. That's not safe, right? And so I don't disagree with your disrespect of women or women being placed in lower positions than we would biblically and socially now agree with, but also just to the point that we tend to say men will be aggressive with women, and women need to be careful how they dress and where they go and who they're around at different times. Well, handsome men have to do the same thing too, right? Yeah, there's places I would feel uncomfortable, and I'm not the prettiest guy in the world. So Sodom just becomes that place, right? And but yeah, I don't know. Nothing ever gives me the impression that angels come and they just don't look very fit and pretty, even by my standards, right? I'd say that's handsome man, right? So we got these very handsome men coming to Sodom at the wrong time of night when the wrong type of people are outside. And this is, you know, and I guess you'd say this is just starting to be accepted by everybody. The culture is just turning its blind eye to this, saying this is what these young men or these older men do. Anyways, doesn't say the angels were handsome, but I'm sure they were. It doesn't help. Not their fault, right? We're not going to guilt people for looking good, but still. Another thought?
Yeah, and I think Lot, for all the years that he lived in Sodom, and he knew how to get around, and I think he used his street smart for this situation. And even though our view is so crude, that's must have been how he lived in those days. Yeah.
Right. You know, even in a person that doesn't want to bribe and steal and be shady, if you live in a shady place, you sort of start figuring how to make things work, right? Had a seminary classmate married a Ukrainian woman, and I don't know how many people he told me he had to bribe to get the marriage license through. It's just how you had to function there to get something as nice as a wedding to happen. And you think Lot's probably not compromising his righteousness here, maybe, but he's navigating. So yeah, I guess it's all to conjecture, right? I mean, the New Testament doesn't slam him for this. It doesn't defend this particularly. But it's kind of a pattern, right? Abraham's like, here, take my sister. But it's actually my wife, and Lot's like, here's my daughters.
If he was so
Yeah.
young that he didn't know they were his daughters, how could he perform sex?
There's a lot of movies with that scenario though, right? I don't remember having relations with your mother, but here you are. Yeah, Joan, I take that as a compliment and a thought that you've never been so drunk you've forgotten what you've done. So that's really good. Lois. I don't want to say the wrong name on the tape. People will think but I've been told you can be out of it so much you don't know what's happening. But okay, enough about that until maybe a moment later. We'll circle back. We do have Moab and Ben-Ammi. Moab literally means father of many. Ben-Ammi means son of my people. Both names reflect the incest from which these nations sprang. Lot's offspring would cause God's people much trouble in the future. So, why are we even told he got drunk? Why don't we hear about other things he did wrong? Well, this starts to fill out the narrative of God's people, right? This is where these people come from. Lot could very easily say, well, the Bible could have told you 14 other stories too, but this is the one that makes sense with the narrative and the purpose of Genesis. But yeah, and again, flashback, we're thinking, oh, who else got drunk that was a really stand-up guy? Noah, right? And gets dark early and there's no ball games on, people drink, I guess, right? I mean, unfortunately, it's a pretty easy, readable temptation throughout history that God's people drank too much. And we could argue here in a minute, things aren't going so well. It's not like not like Lot's drinking every day. Perhaps he's living up by this city called Zoar. He's living in a cave. I mean, you might have reason to pour a libation too if life is going this badly. Not to make an excuse for drinking too much, but you can understand if this is a one-off or something that rarely happens. His flesh was weak, so I don't want to put Noah and Lot into AA just yet, but definitely not good moments for them. All right, now the real questions. Yeah. But I appreciate yours so far, and maybe if any others come up, do let me know here. So question 1, the angels went down to Sodom and Gomorrah. Their mission was to save Lot. How did they witness Lot's faith? I'll pause there. How did the angels witness Lot's faith?
He greeted them. He brought him into his house. He was hospitable. You know, he didn't want him to be out there roaming the streets.
All right, so when I was a stranger, you welcomed me in. Right, so Lot's got that one down. Any other ways maybe they witnessed his faith?
He must have known what would have happened to them. He wasn't just being hospitable to strangers, he was protecting them from the beginning.
Yeah, so kind of, are you thinking along the lines like he tried to sneak him in the back door, knowing?
Before the city knew he was there, they were there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I guess the angels test his faith a bit, right? They say, well, we'll sleep in the street. We'll sleep in the city square. You know, they kind of act, well, they are acting naive. And Lot still, cares for them. I thought too, I don't think my editor put this in there, but I thought, he doesn't argue with them when they talk about the destruction of the city either. Lot hears and knows, hey, you gotta leave, we're gonna destroy this place. Yeah, okay. You didn't have to twist my arm. Yeah, this place does reek with wickedness. That's gonna be pretty obvious from their evening, but even then, his faith is, he knows that these people are from the Lord and angels as such. And I think he has a pretty good meal for them too, right? So, a feast and baked unleavened bread. So that's maybe not the most convenient thing in the middle of the night either, right? Jesus' parable about get us some bread. My kids are sleeping, but no, he feeds them well. The second half of the question there says, how did they personally witness the wickedness of the city? How did the angels personally witness this? Maybe we've enough said, right? They saw them wrestling at the door and pounding and threatening Lot and getting upset at him for not handing the guests over to their wickedness, to their essentially gang rape. So was that the last straw? Well, it certainly was one of the last straws. Huh? The city was not going to get any plea from those angels to be saved.
They grabbed him at the end. In my mind, it's running here through. What would John Wayne do? He'd have had.
Get your damn hands off.
He'd unloaded the 2 barrels.
No, I'm not gonna get that image out of my head.
Yeah. No, yeah,
He took care of it.
yeah. There's pushing and shoving and I don't know. I'm always drawing parallels, So you think like I guess there was 12. Was there 12? Well, there's 2 spies the first time. No, 12 spies the first time, and then 2 spies the second time. They kind of spy out the city, like Jericho, and then struck with blindness. Jesus didn't do that in the garden, but pretty close, right? He threw them all back. But blindness, you have the wicked people scrambling. Again, that cemented in my mind. Lot knew that he had angels there. Right? If there was any doubt before that, I mean, it's gone when these people are all blind and crawling over each other. Yeah. I guess too, maybe just thought that they didn't. It's not like the city said they were sorry either, right? I don't know. I guess that always surprises you too. When Jesus throws the people back in the Garden of Gethsemane, they don't retreat. They're like, well, we're gonna get back up. We'll still arrest you. We'll still high up Pilate. It's like, really? After Jesus did that, after he healed Malchus' ears, you're still gonna do that? And then after this blindness, you don't see any repentance or remorse. I mean, the city is just as bad as it was, and the blindness wears off. They didn't learn anything. So, well, here's a softball. How did the angels save Lot and his family?
Just grabbed them by the hand, dragged them out.
All right. So angels do a lot of dragging here. They pull Lot into the house. They're going to pull Lot out of the city. So talking about that, the leaving here, Lot's future son-in-law, or should it be plural? Well, I'll say singular. His future son-in-law thought he was only joking. Lot himself hesitated to go. Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt. In the end, Lot was saved. But what difficulties had he brought on himself for choosing to live in a place like Sodom?
Well, it's a place you'd never want to turn your back on.
Yeah. So there's resisting temptation, and then there's putting yourself in a place where you have to continually resist temptation. There's being so close to the wickedness, you start to see it rub off and become part of the lives of who your kids are going to marry and the attitude of your wife and her faith. Luke 17, verse 32. Put your finger in Genesis for a second. Flip to Luke 17. Jesus mentions Lot's wife, which I'll say is pretty cool. Luke 17:32. It's not the shortest passage in the Bible, but it's up there, one of the shortest ones. I'll read verse 31 first. So Jesus says, on that day, the person who is on the roof and has belongings in the house should not go down and get them. Likewise, the person in the field should not turn back for anything. Talking about Judgment Day. Verse 32. Remember Lot's wife. Period. Exclamation point. Whoever tries to pursue this life will lose it. Whoever loses his life will keep it. Okay. Remember Lot's wife. Not the example of a person ready to leave this world and to forsake the wickedness and reject it. When Judgment Day comes, don't call your stockbroker and sell all your stocks. It won't matter, right? When Judgment Day comes, don't worry that you need to mow the lawn. It won't matter. Yeah, so again, just a testament to the inspiration of Scripture and its authenticity. Jesus had no problem saying Lot's wife, she became a pillar of salt. Josephus, the famous Jewish historian, says to this day you can see Lot's wife, and there is historically and physically a pillar next near the Dead Sea that people say is Lot's wife. I can neither confirm nor deny the pillar you Google or see on your tours was Lot's wife. Has anybody seen Lot's wife?
We were at the Dead Sea,
Yeah.
and that, I think they pointed that out. It was up on top of, down that.
And how did they spin it? Did they say over millions and millions of years in the erosion, this pillar became known as Lot's wife, or did they say some believe?
If I remember right, the tour guide was Jewish, so he spun it, with the Jewish spin.
So it was Lot's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, he believed it. Yeah. I mean, it's no Michelangelo. I mean, she was 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. You can't really.
It was just a
But
pile of rock.
it
Yeah.
it kind of looks like a unicorn horn, in my opinion. But
If you ever gone to the Arizona, the petrified forest, it's just,
But for Josephus, who was, a lot closer to those times than us, he's like, we still have it. So I'm rooting for that belief that it's still there. It wasn't trampled or crushed or something. But anyway, Lot's wife could be at the bottom of the Red Sea too. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past what's happened since then. So, but yeah, people believe that the site of Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be near the Dead Sea.
Well, she was salt and got wet.
Yeah. Well,
Very dry.
depends on the type of
Then
salt,
it's very
right?
dry now.
Depends on the mixture of salt and other things. So, nevertheless, yeah, it's I don't know. I always think it's like a foreshadow. Like, what should she have been? She should have been salty. But ultimately, what I think the Sodom and Gomorrah destruction and it being salt is a judgment that it's good for nothing, right? Like like Jesus says, the salt that loses its saltiness is good for just trampling upon, and that's kind of what Lot's wife became, right? She became good for being trampled upon, for destruction. So who knows? Maybe next time you salt your driveway, it's not Lot's wife. All right. So thoughts or comments? What was the question? The sons. The sons thought he was joking. Yeah. So the sons-in-law, are like whatever, daddy-o, and the wife was like, I miss the dressmaker, and the bars we used to go to or whatever, and the daughters are not without their their tinge of wickedness, right? They're like, well, instead of trusting in the Lord and finding new husbands, we'll sleep with our dad, and so yeah, just all the way around, where Lot should have taken his flock somewhere else, but history is history. So, do fathers put themselves and their families in harm's way spiritually, as Lot did when he moved into Sodom? Or when do fathers do the same thing? Could we make the case that there is a lesson here for, well, we'll say fathers and mothers, they make decisions together, or they're single moms, right? I mean, do people make similar decisions today that don't work out like Lot did?
I think we make, as fathers, we make priorities, and if our priorities for our children or our wife, on a Sunday morning at 10:45 or 10:30 is, let's sleep in or something like that. That's a decision that it can have a ramifications.
So parents can be short-sighted like Lot, right? I think, well, that's a very prosperous town. I'll have a big market for all my cattle there, and why wouldn't I move there? And something that glitters isn't always turning out to be gold in the long run.
Is it supposed to be close to where he left Abraham when they set?
Well, does it say technically that he moves near those towns, and then you flip the page and he's not near the towns, but he's living in the town? It does seem like maybe over a period of time he's gone from being a suburbanite to a person that dwells in the town. So you can see that. I'm successful enough. I can have my ranchers manage themselves, and I'm going to live like where there's running water and those amenities, right? And Wayne?
I think in our day and age where we can watch live streaming from one end of the country to the other, and in many of our churches it's different, but if you move an area to an area, even where you can never attend a church service or something, I think you're putting yourself in harm's way just because of money. But I want to share the example of the opposite, and that was that from my home church in Saginaw, Michigan, a couple had a son who enrolled at Michigan Lutheran Seminary. They lived in Adrian. The father quit his job, moved to Saginaw to look for work there so that they could be near the son. So that's the opposite. Trying to be close, to be in contact with. If you have to send your son away to high school or college, and you do that on faith. I mean, he came there, and he finally did get a job and everything. His other son was in my grade. So you can put God first, or you can put him last.
Yeah, I mean, it's commendable. The sacrifices people make for their family, not just health-wise, right? They need to be near a better hospital or doctor or something, but also spiritually.
Spiritually,
We just don't have the support here, and the teaching here that my family needs. And again, it's a fine line. When does a Sodom need Lot, and when does Lot need to get out of Sodom? And that's a real wrestle.
we have Wells members today that drive an hour and a half to get to a Wells church, past who knows how many other bodies on the way. I know that happened when our son was at a suburb of Cleveland.
Yeah, and again, the world isn't always a perfect situation. Too, you have to draw your lines of where does God need me to represent Him and be faithful, and where do I need the support and be faithful somewhere else. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll look back at our lives and God will remind us too on the last day of some of the decisions we've made that pleased Him in regards to, you know, where we lived and went to school or church. Yeah. Yeah, you said something, and I made a note of it too. I said, Sodom is kind of everywhere now, right? Thanks to the internet shrinking the world, and television and media, and I think that's certainly a frustration. You know, you don't have to live in Las Vegas for your or some Wild West town for your kids and family to be subject to Wild West types of lifestyles and craziness. Now it's coming right through our phones and internet, and I think that's definitely a sign of the end times, right? I mean, where's Sodom and Gomorrah? Like, well, where isn't it? At least, where's its billboards not, and message not being proclaimed and pounding on our doors? So, and I think that's what I hear, right? I hear people say, well, I raised my children this way, and I still got this other result. It's not like I moved to Sodom. It wasn't like I didn't bring them to church. And you're just, maybe at the end of the day, we just have to realize that Sodom has moved towards us. And we can't find a place to go out away from Sodom and Gomorrah, unless it's Siberia or North Korea with no internet or something, right? And then again, try being a Christian in those places. So, comments, thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to read that to Peter.
Oh, thank you, Lois. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll just read the question first. That's the last question there. Sometimes we consider Lot to be almost an unbeliever. What does 2 Peter 2:7-8 say about the Lot and his character? Go ahead.
I'm going to start at 6. If you condemn the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to bring them to ashes and made them an example of what was going on to happen in ungodly. Here's 7:8. And he rescued Lot, a righteous man, was distressed by the filthy lives of lawless men. For that righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his righteousness, in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds that he saw and heard.
All right, so 2 Peter, by inspiration there, makes the comment that it was a struggle every day for Lot, because he was a righteous man, to live there. Which starts to back up some of the thoughts, like maybe his quote unquote sacrifice of his daughters was not realistic. He was street smart. Brings to mind maybe living in Sodom was something that he didn't like, but just like he couldn't get his family out the stinking door. Maybe we could say he's a righteous man that was not very assertive with his family, right? Like, the city's going to be destroyed, and what's taking people so long? It's I don't know. I mean, do we have hours here? He has hours or half a day to get everybody leaving, and the angels still have to pull them out like there's a fire. So. His righteousness was not because he was perfect, but he was a man of faith, and we see that best when he's not contending with his wife and his kids, I guess. Maybe we know the feeling sometimes too, where people don't bring out the best in us. I'll say it on tape. Maybe sometimes my kids don't bring out the best husband in me, right? Maybe you experienced that. I just, when you're tempted in certain ways and you struggle in certain ways, maybe maybe you don't always come out as the person as you are by faith. So, comments, Joan? I think you have a hand. Just one second.
Well, this whole land around that area was lush and green and great for pasture land and stuff prior to this. And Abraham took the lesser land and Lot took the very good land. And now there isn't a blade of grass that grows on it.
Yeah.
And it's very near the mountains nearby there with the caves are where the all those
Oh,
biblical
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Dead
Yeah.
Dead Sea Scrolls were found. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Isaiah obviously had been in that area at some point too,
Yeah.
because one of those Dead Sea Scrolls is the book of Isaiah.
Well, yeah, you get into how old the Dead Sea Scrolls are. The Dead Sea Scrolls are younger than this text by about 1,000 years. Isaiah is younger too, but yeah. No, so one thing you did mention, and I just want to highlight that too. It says he's like, hey, there's this little city. I'll go live there, and then it seems like even they don't want him there. He has to go live in a cave, and I kind of think like, boy, you're the only guy that survived from Sodom and Gomorrah, and you want to live here? I don't feel good about that. I can see people being like, you go out there, and it did say in Jude 7, so we won't look it up, but if you look up Jude 7 later, it does say that the towns around Sodom and Gomorrah were wicked too. So I wonder if these towns understand that the wicked towns got smitten and destroyed, boy, we would be like next on the list. And now Lot comes here, and yeah, so it makes you think that maybe Lot didn't want to live in a cave, but that was probably the only room in the area that would take him. The other thing I would note, and you can go home and talk to your significant others about this, is Lot doesn't mourn for his wife either, which I don't know. I gotta find that interesting. His wife is a pillar of salt, and that's it. And maybe that's a testament sometimes to the unbelievers in our lives that pass away. I mean, yeah, we don't like it. We don't feel good about it, but you know, they might not get the Christian funeral and mourning that a believer does. So. Again, maybe just not the point of the story. Maybe he did mourn, but when Sarah died, he mourned. Lot's wife died. Lot moved on. So that's my last thoughts on that. Maybe not a happy note, but that is chapter 19, and we'll close with the doxology.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.